So, welcome. Thank you for making some time for this conversation today. My name is Jena Kuznik. I am a senior consultant from Potrero Group. We are going to talk about working with executive recruiters today and really optimizing your search process from beginning to end. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on our end of the table behind our screen when we're talking to you. And hopefully, you learn some things that help you in your search process or if you're looking to work with an executive recruiter. So I think the robot might have told you, but this is being recorded so we can share it with folks who are interested but can't join at the moment. Please do stay muted throughout the webinar so we're spared your leaf blowers and barking dogs. If you are joining now, you should see a poll pop up. We would love to know a little bit about who is joining us today and where you're coming from. We'll look at the results of those in a few minutes. At the end of our time today, we'll spare some time for Q&A. My colleague Steph Karp is going to help us moderate some of that discussion. You are welcome to use the chat feature. That's a great resource for you to sort of talk to the people in the room, share your own experiences, ask some questions. But if you'd like to make sure it gets into the Q&A discussion, drop it into that Q&A tool to make sure we see it. We'd love to really focus on sort of universal questions that are going to apply to a lot of people. So if you have a very specific situation that you'd like to ask about, maybe send me an email or a DM and we can talk about it separately. And just a quick plug that I'll make again at the end, but we'll have another webinar next month on October 29th. My colleague Stephanie Karp, Managing Director at Potrero Group, will host that conversation talking about cultivating and sustaining high-impact collaborations. So that'll include public-private partnerships, funder guarantee partnerships, network coalitions, and more. So that will be a good conversation to join. A little bit about myself. As I mentioned, my name is Jena Kuznik. I have been with Potrero Group for a little over 7 years now. I primarily work on our executive and board search. I come from an early background in sustainable ag and infrastructure investment, as well as environmental philanthropy. I have degrees in sustainable agriculture from UC Davis and the Master's of Environmental Management from the Yale School of the Environment. So a lot of the work that I do is very personal to me. My clients, like Potrero's, are often land trusts, conservancies, partnership coalitions, value-aligned organizations that are going through a leadership transition. So I get to work with organizations at a really pivotal moment, and I get to work with candidates sort of securing their dream jobs, which is fun. I work with clients across the country as Potrero Group does. So I have hired the ED of the California Council of Land Trusts. I've also placed an executive at Jefferson County Greenways Alliance in Alabama. So literally coast to coast, both my clients and my candidates. Currently, I am leading the search for the Land Trust of Napa County's new CEO, the new Director of Conservation position at Sonoma Land Trust, and very soon we will be launching a Director of Institutional Engagement position at Peninsula Open Space Trust. So just a little plug for those roles for anybody who's currently looking. You should go to our website, see what we're currently looking for, and follow us on LinkedIn to see future opportunities. Okay. So Potrero Group supports innovative leaders and organizations making a difference in the world by providing rigorous strategy and business planning, organizational effectiveness, and search services to mission-driven organizations. We engage with organizations at moments of transition, growth, and uncertainty, helping them to clarify their strategy through leadership. So executive search is a really critical part of that process, and we approach this work as strategic partners, not just as recruiters. We are helping them understand the need for the moment, the plan for the long term, and really identifying candidates who can help them move their organizations forward. So as we look at your applications and consider your candidacy, we're going to be looking at it through that very strategic lens and constantly advising our clients on how they might think of your candidacy within the context of their needs. Steph, can we see the poll results? Thank you. So a lot of folks are actively looking for a new role, which tracks with the topic of our conversation. So glad to have you here. A number of folks are casually interested in the right opportunity or just looking to learn more. People are reasonably confident in their interviewing skills, which is great to see. It is definitely a skill. It is something that is learned. It is something that can be practiced. We'll talk today about how you can improve those and become an even stronger interviewer. Um, about a quarter of folks have worked with executive recruiters as a candidate, a few as an employer, but for many of you, this is a new space. And most of you are coming to us from the nonprofit sector, a few from government and private sector, and a lot of folks in leadership roles, executive leader, senior leaders, and then other folks sort of working their way up towards those executive level positions. So glad to have you all here. Thanks for making some time. For those who have not worked with executive recruiters before, we are an external agency that is hired by an organization to fill a high-level critical role. So we're working with executive directors, CEOs, managing directors, also at the C-suite level, vice presidents, directors, and some of those key strategic opportunities, like I've recruited for land transaction managers, senior scientists, things that are a little bit harder to place. Okay. I'll give you a high-level overview of the search process, and then we're going to dig into each step in more detail as we go. Potrero Group runs a very in-depth process. So by the time you find us as a candidate, we've already been working with the client for about a month. That's so that we can really understand the organization, its needs, opportunities, challenges, the needs for the role, and then identify the core criteria for success in that position. So that's something that I'm going to come back to over and over again today. We work with the client to write a position profile that really tells you as much as we can about the organization, about the responsibilities, and about what it will take to be successful in this role. We write ours in a way that really focuses on those core criteria. So it should be very clear to you as you read this document, what it is we're looking for, what we are going to prioritize. Sometimes you'll see a job description and it's just a list of things that maybe you're going to end up doing. I'll talk about this a little more too, but drop it into an AI tool and ask it, what are the key criteria for this role? You want to make sure that you really understand what job you are applying for so that you can position yourself to answer those questions before they even get asked. We do about a month of recruiting, and then we'll go through 4 rounds of interviews, 2 with Potrero Group as sort of initial screening conversations, and then 2 with the search committee and the organization, first by Zoom and then in person for a final interview. We'll work with the organization to make their final selection, and then we work with both the selected candidate and the organization to manage the negotiation process and set the stage for a successful onboarding experience. So the first step in this journey is recruiting. It's how we find you. Sometimes a job will come across your LinkedIn feed, you'll click apply, and you land in our applicant tracking system without any interaction in advance. Totally fine. That doesn't change your candidacy. Often we go looking for candidates who are filling a very specific niche for the organization, meeting the needs of the role. We're primarily using LinkedIn for that work. We also have an AI-enabled database, but that's really based off of LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is doing all the work for you. It lays out a very clear outline of your career to date. It is highlighting some of the skills that I'm going to be looking for. You might find 4 or 5 active or expired job descriptions that meet sort of what you're looking for in a role, and make sure that your LinkedIn profile matches those things. So if it talks about staff leadership, you're addressing that. If it talks about fundraising, you're noting it. We want to know how long you've held these jobs, the kinds of responsibilities that you've had in these jobs, but we are doing it fast. So bullet points and summaries are really your friend and ours. Keep it succinct and clear. Um, One of the most powerful tools that we use as recruiters are referrals. So if a trusted advisor tells us that we should connect with someone, we are going to. If a board member says they want to interview someone, we are going to. So you should be activating your personal and professional networks. Have coffee with folks. Tell them what you're looking for. Have your elevator pitch down very clear so that when a role comes across their desk, they think of you. They know that it's what you're looking for, and they know that you're a match for it. Um, you can get introductions to people through folks that you know. You can put up on LinkedIn what it is you're looking for. Just staying top of mind for the people that are really well networked to the kinds of roles that you're looking for is going to serve you very well. Random referrals, like if I got my sister to call Steph and put in a good word for me, that doesn't do much because I don't have that baseline of trust to draw from. But if it is somebody that I already know, that the client already knows, whose judgment we trust, who understands the need, that's going to carry a lot of weight. So make sure your network knows that you're looking. I wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into our applicant tracking system. We use a platform called Loxo. It is AI enabled, so we can do a little bit of searching through our ATS, but we don't let the robots do the work for us. Everybody is being reviewed by a human, but it's useful to know what your profile looks like when the robot puts it into the list. So you hit apply, you attach your resume and your cover letter, and it immediately populates you into a card like this. Some programs will be more like a spreadsheet. It's all basically the same. It's this very high level summary of your experience. Let's see if my tech will work. When I click into that card, it is going to download your resume into a very digestible format. So it'll give me all of your experience. It'll give me your education background. It'll give me any skills and tags from your LinkedIn profile. You should be optimizing your skills so that the algorithm can help you appear in my LinkedIn search. If you're looking for roles that require 5 things, make sure those 5 things are on your LinkedIn profile so that you show up in our algorithm. Once we click through into your profile, we can then also access your resume and cover letter and any correspondence that we've had with you and see if you've applied for our searches previously. If you get rejected for one search, but you make a strong impression for us, that's a great fast track to being considered for another search. So I know it's discouraging, but it's also great to sort of create that relationship and get on our radar. You always want to send your materials by PDF, your cover letter, your resume, any writing samples that you send, always send it by PDF. The robots can't handle Word documents and they get distorted in the system. So do yourself a favor there. We get about 200 applicants for a job, so you want to keep your resume concise, no more than 2 pages. If there are things going back 30 years, unless you were working at the White House, it's probably not too important. Try to give us the major bullet points, the key responsibilities, and again, tailor it to the job that you're applying for. So I get a lot of people that are trying to switch sectors, but they're not updating their resume so that I can see the linkage to this new sector and this new role. We always look at resumes. Often that'll be a quick scan. We're looking for mission alignment, we're looking for skills expertise, and we're looking for the right level of experience. I'll tell people that you can move up in experience as long as you have that skills and mission depth, or you can move across in in experience to gain new skills and mission alignment, but you can't do both at the same time. So you want to make it very clear that either you have the skills and this is the next logical step in your career progression, or you don't yet, or you've already done the role at the right level, and this is just a translation of a new subject matter expertise. Your cover letter is people often ask how important they are, and it depends. Right off the bat, I'm not spending too much time with cover letters, but once either I am sold on a candidate, I will go to the cover letter for confirmation, or if I can see all the pieces and I'm just missing some detail, or I really want to be sold, I'll look to the cover letter at that point to confirm my feelings. So clients also love cover letters. As soon as I start putting candidates in front of the search committee, they're immediately going to go to the cover letter. They want to see that it is very tailored, specific to their organization. It should read like a love letter. It should really celebrate your skills alignment and your excitement about the role. Cover letters hold a lot of weight once you get to that point. So they are important to get right at the application stage. So you've made it through the gauntlet, 200 applicants. We offer interviews to about 20. So you know that there's something there, and now you want to prepare to set yourself up for success in these early interviews. Start by doing your research. This is going to mean different things at different stages of the interview process. For that first interview, you really want to be familiar with a position profile. You want to know what job you're applying for and how to market yourself so that you are speaking to those needs. Later on in the process, especially by the time you're meeting with the search committee, you want to have spent some time on their website, with their strategic plan, their annual report, their 990, so that you can have a very well-developed opinion of the organization, of their opportunities, a sense of their challenges. You can craft some very tailored questions. You don't have to be an expert in the way that a staff is an expert in the organization, but you want to demonstrate your excitement through that preparation. The number one thing that you can do to set yourself up for success is to practice. So as I mentioned, get on your favorite AI, maybe not one that's going to sell your data, but drop the position profile into AI and say, what are the 5 core criteria for the role? Draft me 10 interview questions related to each of these core criteria. Using this job description, write 20 interview questions, 20 behavioral questions, and then practice those. Say them out loud. Talk to a friend. Mumble to yourself while you walk. But actually putting the words in your mouth is going to make them more available to you when you are interviewing, and that is going to make you more comfortable, more confident, and more compelling. It does help to sort of think about things, make some notes, but then go through the motions and actually do the work. If you're getting a lot of interviews and it's not going anywhere, record yourself. See if you're stumbling, if you're downplaying yourself, if you're drifting. Sometimes people sort of lose the thread of the question. Getting yourself on video can be a very clear spotlight on where you need to improve. You also want to control your environment. So we do first interviews by phone, but everything after that is either by Zoom or in person. So dress professionally but comfortably. Make sure there's not a lot of noise in the background. Try to be somewhere private as much as you can. I've had people take interviews from coffee shops on their phone, and you're trying to understand if, like, am I not impressed with this person, or am I distracted by their environment? Like, you don't want to be torpedoed by the environment around you. Make sure your tech works. Make sure you have a signal. Don't let the gremlins undermine your candidacy. And then, as I mentioned, you want to spend a little bit of time drafting questions. You can really demonstrate your expertise, your insight, your passion, just by asking a few really insightful questions. People always ask about the logistics and the next steps, but go a level deeper. And then as you start meeting with the client, you should have a good sense of the organization so that you can really ask insightful questions. Those will land really well and set you above your peers. So as I mentioned, Potrero Group leads 2 interviews with our candidates before introducing them to the search committee. So from a pool of 200, we'll narrow that down to 20, and then we'll cut that in half again for the interviews that we lead by Zoom. Each of these is really going to be about understanding your background and your fit with the core competencies of the role. And then as you progress through the interview process, it'll get a little bit more detailed and specific. But you can expect that your early interviews are all going to include, tell me about yourself. We want to know the narrative arc of your career and understand the fit between what you have done previously and how you are going to bring it into this next role. So this answer can be a little bit longer, but you do want to manage your time. Don't spend your full 30 minutes telling them about the summer camp that you went to. I don't care. But it's a great chance to demonstrate your mission alignment, your skills expertise, and show that you're familiar with some of the needs that you will be facing in this role. We recruit for nonprofits, so mission alignment, the value proposition is really important to us and our clients. We want to know that this matters to you and that you are going to bring your heart and soul to the work. So you need to have articulated why this role, why are you making this jump at this time? Why is this organization exciting to you? In a way that, demonstrates some level of connection. Especially in the first interview, we're going to be hitting the highlights to those core competencies. These are going to be leadership, strategy, management and operations, fundraising. You should know what the basics are going to be, and you should have anecdotes prepared to speak to those topics. So those questions are going to be, tell me about a time when. Tell me about a time when you led a fundraising campaign, when you led culture change at an organization, when you interacted with the board. They're going to fit back to the headlines of the core competencies. We recommend a tool called STAR, Situation, Task, Action, Result. So tell me about the context that you were facing, what the problem was, what you did. I want to know what your role was in this, not what the organization did. We often see people confusing I and we in interviews, and I really need to know what you contributed to this work and then what the result of that was. We love specific details. We'll often try to ask for them directly, but it's great to sort of weave them into your answers. I managed this many staff. I was responsible for this size budget. I supported a capital campaign that raised this much money. Those are great details to help us validate your expertise. One thing that I often see is that candidates will reach for the highest common denominator when really you want to be focusing on the needs of the organization you're interested in. So if you have led a staff of 30 and $1 billion budget, and then you're moving to a land trust that has $1 million budget and a staff of 3, they're going to be scared away if you shoot too high. They're going to want to see that you can adjust to the culture that they are operating within, that you can manage your own schedule, that you can make do on a scrappy budget. And so you can point to those larger numbers, but then also make sure you're contextualizing it for your audience. So I managed a team of 30, but I had direct oversight over 3 people and we got a lot done. Or this specific project where we were resource limited, or a different setting, or earlier in my career, any way that you can give them comfort that either you can grow towards the goals that they have, or that you can contextualize yourself within their situation. Other things we'll cover later in the interview process, probably not in those first interviews, are going to be behavioral questions. So questions that try to uncover, how do you deal with uncertainty? How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with interpersonal relationships? Trying to understand what kind of leader you're going to be and how you're going to handle the curveballs that will come at you in whatever role you are applying for. Another great AI use, ask them to draft you some questions and then think about scenarios, examples that might speak to some of those situations. Potrero Group tries to cover all of the key considerations that you're going to have in this job. So salary, start date, interview process, location in that first interview to make sure that there's alignment. You don't have to negotiate for your final salary in this conversation, but we want to know that we're in the right ballpark so that when we make you an offer, you say, actually, I can't move to the Bay Area. Actually, I need $100,000 more than you've offered. Actually, we're not going to be able to arrive at an agreement here. So that's just sort of setting the groundwork. If you are not aligned with their needs, this is the time to bring it up, because you also don't want to go all the way down the path with someone who, you're not going to be satisfied with in the long run. And sometimes there is appetite to negotiate on flexible work location or work hours, salary, you name it. But it's good to sort of get it out there early. And then the other thing that it's good to address early are any red flags or concerns on your resume. So if you have a gap, if you were fired, bring it up. Let's talk about it. There are ways to talk about these things that are not going to torpedo your candidacy. You just want to be sure that you have a narrative for it. You are not talking disparagingly about a past employer. This is not endemic of your personality or work style. You want to have a reason, like, there was a board transition and they decided to go in a new direction with the organization that didn't align with my values. And so we mutually agreed that it was time for me to step out and look for a new position. Great. I can sell that. If I'm going to find something about you on Google, if your references are going to tell me something that gives me pause, I want to know about it as soon as possible so that we can talk about it, so that I can talk to the client about it. It will be something that we talk about. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker as long as it's managed transparently. All right, so you've won me over through 2 interviews, and now I've put you forward on a short list for client interviews. We usually introduce a short list of 5 candidates to the search committee. They interview them by Zoom for an hour. This is a very traditional sort of round robin scripted questions. Again, we're going back to basics. We want to know about yourself, your mission alignment, and your fit with the core criteria for the role. And then following that, we'll narrow that down usually to 3 final candidates who are invited for final interviews. These are typically held in person. Senior manager, C-suite level might be half a day. Executive director, CEO is typically all day. It might include lunches and dinners and meet and greets. We want to see you in a lot of different settings. So this is going to start with a formal, scary interview around a conference table with the search committee. They're going to dig in greater depth to the requirements for the role, any uncertainties that were elevated through your past interviews. It's also a great time for you to get a bit more specific and insightful in your questions. And they are going to want to not just hear about what you've done in the past, but to start to translate that into the current context of the role in front of you. After that, we like to ask our executive candidates to do a presentation, some kind of an assignment. We give it to them in advance. We always recommend that you prepare slides because it helps to anchor you. It helps to slow you down. It makes you look a little bit more professional. And that presentation is usually about 10 minutes long. We'll invite direct reports, peers, board members who are not on the search committee, other people who might like a lens into your candidacy at this final stage. They're not decision makers, but their voice does matter in this process. Presentations are usually a little bit high level. It's about your background and experience. It's about your vision for the organization and the role. Maybe we'll ask you about, your strategic ideas, how you might address a specific challenge. We want to see that you have thought about this organization and that you have ideas from day one. It's a chance for us to see you on your feet, presenting to a group. It might help us understand how you're going to work with the board, with funders, at a conference, see you in a different light. After presentations, we try to build in some kind of an informal conversation. So that might be lunch. It might be a hike. It might be half an hour with senior staff. Just an opportunity to get your questions answered, to get a better sense of the culture of the organization, to ask those last lingering questions or uncertainties that we have about your candidacy. And this is really an opportunity to make a connection, demonstrate your excitement, your passion. If you can connect with staff in these moments, that is going to do wonders for your candidacy. You don't want to be the candidate who impresses the board and then falls flat with the staff. It's really hard to sell you as the final choice at that point. Some of our clients will do dinner with the board or a lunch out, meeting with funders, meeting with key partners, sort of just a final opportunity to vet you around among their most trusted partners. It gets a little challenging at this point to lock down the confidentiality of your candidacy. So if that is something you are concerned about, coming into these final interviews is the moment to chat about that with myself and then with the search committee. Before final interviews, I always try to schedule time with my candidates, because by the time I have advanced you to the shortlist, I am on your team. I want you to know all about your candidacy. I want you to know what your strengths are, where your gaps lie, the things that they're going to be worried about or considering, the things that you might look to allay them on. I want them to have a fully formed understanding of you and your candidacy so that they can make the right choice. I don't want people to choose the slickest, shiniest, most practiced person. I want them to make the right choice for the long term for their organization. And I'm going to help you present yourself in the best light so that you can help them see that. Let's see. So you've gone through this all-day final interview. I know that you are exhausted and you still need to send a thank you note. It is astonishing how important thank you notes are. Some people don't care, but if they do, they care a lot. So within 24 hours, you want to send a thank you note to myself, or if you have their contacts, the search committee, the search lead. It's a last opportunity to make a good impression, to reinforce your fit, to demonstrate your excitement about the role, and also to share something that you learned through the interview process. Like, I was so excited to see your programs. I'm so inspired by your staff. The landscape that you can serve really resonates with me, to show that you are really dedicated to this position. Following the final interviews, we try to stack them up within about a week of each other so that we can come to a timely decision. I'll facilitate that decision-making conversation with the search committee. We'll collect feedback from the staff, any board members that you spoke to. So we have sort of all of everybody's impressions at our fingertips, and then we're able to make a fully formed decision with the committee. And then they will take that decision to the board, especially for a CEO or an executive director position, to be ratified. So sometimes there's a little bit of a lag time between your final interview and the offer, because they need to confirm everybody's impressions, get unified around a decision, and then ratify the choice with the board, which can be a logistical challenge at times. But usually within about the space of a week, they're prepared to make an offer. Once they have landed on a choice of candidate, we complete our reference checking process. We might start that earlier in the interview process, but we're going to make sure that before you have accepted your offer, we want to talk to a direct report, a peer, and a supervisor to get a fully fledged understanding of your connections with the core criteria for the role. And try to surface any potential red flags through those reference checks, through a media scan, and then often the client will do a background check. I love to get my clients to make the offer themselves. So the chairperson of the board will give you a call. They'll say, "We're so excited about your candidacy. We loved you for these 3 reasons. We'd like to make you an offer. The salary is this. We recommend this starting date." We'll send you a letter by email you can have a few days to review it. You are never required to accept an offer on the spot, and I strongly encourage you not to. Even if they don't say it, you can say, I'm so excited by this. I was really impressed with your organization. I look forward to getting your offer letter by email. I'd like a few days to consider it, and you can expect my response by XYZ. I tell my clients that expediency is the enemy of good decisions. That is true of them and their decisions. It is also true of you and your decisions. By the time you are in a final interview, they should be wooing you as much as they are deciding on you. So be sure you're getting your questions answered. Be sure you are comfortable with what you are agreeing to, and take a moment to negotiate. This is the moment in your employment where you can ask for what you want and have a chance of getting it. After this, it's all going to be incremental changes on your baseline. So make sure that baseline is what you need. So the salary should always fall within that posted range. In California, it's law that job descriptions have to include a salary range, not one specific number and not commensurate with experience, but literally written down what the range is. You should never accept a salary that is below that range. I will never let my clients offer a salary below that range. It has happened once by accident. That was an accident. You should be getting within the salary range. You can negotiate above the salary range if it is within their budget. And that should be a conversation that you should have teased earlier in the process. It is possible, it is not probable. You do not want to drive a nonprofit organization out of operation by overextending the salary that you request. And that is the board's job to make sure that, they're budgeting things appropriately and offering what they can pay, but also they should have done that groundwork in the due diligence process before we launched the search. If the salary is less than what you were hoping for, you can also negotiate on your other benefits. That's your PTO, your health care. Maybe you can get a title adjustment. If they were offering senior scientist, maybe they could go for director of science. Maybe professional development, a relocation stipend. We do not often see signing bonuses in the nonprofit world, but you can ask. And then your start date as well. So some of these areas are a little bit more set in stone. Often their healthcare is a little bit fixed, but you're always welcome to ask. Areas like PTO tend to be policy, but you can ask. Like it's an area where they are better able to make accommodations, even if they don't have the budget or some of the other resources that you're looking for. At this point, I am on your side. I am managing the conversation back and forth with the client and with the candidate. You can talk to me about your concerns. You can talk to me about your expectations. I will help you manage that conversation with the hiring committee. I don't want a deal to fall apart at the 11th hour. I'm going to do anything I can to get you to a point where everybody is excited about signing this offer letter. Once you have signed the offer letter, Potrero Group builds in coaching and a placement guarantee into our contract with the client. So you still have us as a resource as you are getting started, and we really want you to make use of us. So we offer 3 months of coaching for your first few months of employment, 1 hour of coaching for 3 months once you've started your employment. We are a great external sounding board to talk about your relationship with the board, to talk about connecting with senior staff, to talk about your plans for strategy, your needs for strategic planning or business planning, helping to be a trusted advisor who knows your organization very well and has a lot of experience in this field to be a sounding board. And then we do guarantee your placement for your first year. So again, it's really in our best interest to see you successful. We never want to have somebody burn out in those early months because they weren't being supported in the ways that they needed to. Let's see. I think that is everything I wanted to throw at you like a fire hose in this session. So we covered a lot of ground. I'm sure you have questions. My colleague Steph Karp is going to help us facilitate some of the questions that have been popping up in the chat. We're also going to stop recording at this point so that you can feel more comfortable to share your questions without that sort of getting out into the universe. And I'm going to take one more opportunity to plug our next webinar, which is coming up on October 29th about working in partnership. And then we've also got some QR codes for you to sign up for our newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn, and you've got my contact information here. I am happy for you to reach out with specific questions. I can't always respond to every single one because we get a lot of applicants for our jobs, but I'm happy to help as I can.